家公的所有，爸妈也拉丁手，这面三把干部，把面修拉公所，那要我多问我，把面送来年里，撒家公的所有，爸妈也你妈耶，那要我多问我，把面送来年里，撒家公的所有。
My name's Denton. I'm a retired teacher now. I started to sponsor a child in exile from Tibet 10 years ago now because we had, I still do yoga, and in our summer school the teachers would come to teach us for free, but we would still pay, and they used the money to send to you in the Tibetan Community sponsorship. So they brought in some files of the children and their plight and their education, and that's how I got interested in it, really. So for me personally, I've got two sons of my own, so I chose to sponsor a girl. Want to give more chance because girls often miss out on education, I think, in India and Tibet, or at least the boys get priority sometimes. So I thought it would be nice to choose a girl and to see her grow up, really. And I've been lucky enough to be able to, quite easily afford to watch her go from, do you want to see? She started off as this tiny little child 10 years ago and looked very forlorn at coming to school on her first day and a little bit frightened. And now Deshan is this lovely young lady who writes to me regularly and is now in college, sort of sixth form college I suppose it would be here. And it's been great to see just one individual progress in that way. And I keep all the letters from when she first started to write at all, and she always draws, and it's lovely. She's very interested in drawing, and she very, very often comes top of the class, so it's really nice, and has been school captain as well, so it's really nice. So that's how I got into it.
It is probably one of the most worthwhile things that you can do to sponsor a child's education. None of us know the future, none of us can speak for tomorrow. But I think the one thing is that, as I said earlier, it's absolutely certain is that without education you have no future. That is just a statement of fact. So anyone who wants to sponsor a child, Tibetan child, I think can be 100% certain that child will do everything it can to respond to the sponsorship. This will not be money wasted. I have never yet met a Tibetan child who doesn't appreciate being sponsored and doesn't know that the only thank you it can truly give is to do its very, very best at school or at college, in whatever field it's taken into. And that is an enormous reward for the sponsor.
Why I chose, if you like, because in schools they're always asking teachers and children to sponsor children on the other side of the world, but quite a lot of the sponsorships that were available then were for a child, say, in another country who was going to become a Christian in order to get the sponsorship, or you were sponsoring through a Catholic school or something like this. But I was very interested in that Deshan's been able to keep her Tibetan identity and to learn to speak Tibetan even though she can only live in India. So I wanted to help someone keep their culture rather than change it, I suppose. That's why I chose this. Yeah.
My name's Dan Beard. I hitchhiked through China and Tibet in 96, 97 and fell in love with Tibet and was heartbroken by Tibet at the same time. So when I came back through India, Sri Lanka and stuff, I came back to the UK, I joined Free Tibet campaign, and then somehow Kunsung, she got in touch with me and I started to sponsor a child in Tibet, and that was quite a while ago, so every month I've been paying £15 to help Tibetan children. And as you say, it's my little piece of passive resistance against the Chinese by educating Tibetan people.
My name is Swan Ko, and I came from Malaysia, Chinese origin, and I've been sponsoring, I think, since 1995-96, just about 20 years. Saw an article when I went to the Barbican Center to see the Dalai Lama's talk. I think it was 95. So I picked up this leaflet which talks about the Tibetan children, the charity, and I decided that I'd like to do something to help the children. So I started two children sponsoring.
My name is Dawa Kelsang, and I've been sponsoring, most probably, I've been in this country for 14 years, so most probably 9 to 10 years since I have started sponsoring Tibetan children or a child.
My name's Angela, I'm 34 and I've been a Buddhist for 15 years. So I was looking for a charity to support when I started working, and obviously Tibet's a very important cause, and with His Holiness being such an amazing leader, that I thought it would be a good charity to support.
She is an inspiration because she always writes so beautifully. So she's an inspiration. I've used her letters in an assembly in school when I used to teach, because she has, it's quite quirky English, as you can imagine, because she's learning, and quite often she finishes the letter by saying, "And now I rest my dancing pen, your loving daughter, Deshan." And it's nice to have that sort of contact with an individual you may never meet, but you know that she works so hard. I think just 1 year she came second or third, and she usually comes first or second. And her letter was so apologetic, "I will try harder next time." So she's making the best of every single opportunity you can give her. And really the amount we're giving is, like you say, it's 3 or 4 coffees, isn't it? A month is what you might spend in a week on coffee, you know, having a cup of coffee with a friend. So you're having a cup of coffee with a friend, in a way, across the world. And she gets her education given to her, and she's very grateful, and it's nice to see her develop from that little scrap of a child to a beautiful educated young woman. And education will never ever be wasted, and she herself now has become an inspiration to people I taught who perhaps had forgotten their homework or said that it's too hard to do. I'd say, hey, look at this, you know, because she works hard every day.
You know, we feel so useless with the whole Chinese thing going on. It's just a little something that we could do. And I suppose when you know, almost 20 years later, £3,000 later, and how many kids I've managed to educate, help them keep the Tibetan language going, cultures going, because without the Tibetan community and all these other sort of campaigns going on around the world, unfortunately, Tibetan culture would just wither away. So it's, you know, it's one of the most precious cultures in the world, and it's our way of keeping it going.
I've been sponsoring Pasang for 10 years. She was 4 and now she's 15. I'm disabled. I've had 9 operations. I take 23 tablets a day, including morphine throughout the day. So my day is quite difficult, quite painful. I had to give up my work several years ago, so now I live just on my disability benefit. But if I can live just on disability benefit and pay for a child to go to school, then I really think anybody can. I've really enjoyed coming here today. So if you could do this every couple of years just for us all to meet, it would make us feel, I suppose it makes us feel really wanted, and thank you very much for today.
My name is Brian Bowles, and I attended a Tibetan cultural event in the 90s. And there was a little stall or a stand where people were being invited to sponsor a Tibetan child. And really I didn't know anything about it. And I thought, okay, I'll give it a go. Well, that was something like 20 years ago, and 3 children ago. I'm on to my 3rd Tibetan pupil currently. So that's how it started, and it's quite painless. The money comes out of my account every month. I don't notice it because it's not a huge amount, but I think it makes a big difference to them. And then I try, but don't always remember Christmas and birthdays. And there's interaction between myself, obviously, and the young pupil that I'm sponsoring. It seems to make a difference.
My mother, she's a sponsor as well, and she writes to her child every month and stuff, and she calls her mummy and all that sort of stuff. And they have a relationship going on. So my mother is very, she really enjoys communicating with them. I should communicate more, but I have enjoyed receiving my Christmas cards. But one day I would love to go to northern India to see some of the children, hopefully meet one of mine.
I have been brought up in Tibetan community in Bailakupi, and then I've been to boarding school like 2 years, and I did my nursing in India. And I always want to give back something to my community, and I feel that I owe so much to my community. And I thought the best way I can help do something is to sponsor a child. So I've done that through the Tibetan community, because I always felt the Department of Education is the best way through which I can do something.
I was told today that I'm one of the longest sponsors. And as I say, it started in the mid-1990s, and I've sponsored 3 children, and the 3rd is still undergoing his education. I've been sponsoring him for about 5 years, I think, now. And he's great. I mean, I get Christmas cards and letters, and he tells me what's happening with him and his family. And it's very moving, because the life of his parents particularly, I think, is very, very difficult. And basically, without sponsorship from people from the West, and it really is a very, very small amount compared with our normal everyday outgoings, without sponsorship from the West, that boy wouldn't get an education. His parents would be really, really stretched. And at least it takes the pressure off them. And they know that he's going to receive a good education no matter what. And it will help not only them, it'll be for his life in the future, and will help the Tibetan community, which is all to the good. And boy, it needs it.
ngemingla kusan chudun sigiyo ni nga tanda lobby ki rozo ki tungji lo jungni haksu chei tanda pyrisobe dezaki pyrisobe ki dezaki tungji chebe kabla tuzu ngege yago tange ki bogo ro chigen ki jinda chonyamdo dewashita yago sutubiyo 아니 롭투 마르시타 탄트네 체토여레 드린데 페버드 망쟁이 모시부터 드리샤 인간주 브루소베기 단데 데제기 로람난게기 진다 망체와 지다 베든라 겹교유게 미체 라과도 콘주디게 베베 보고들의 신연디 개준부시부지지네 콘주기 로가 제교딘데레 콘주 딘데 로람난게 진다 망보지 식동 고기야 고주 고숨 고지 된다네 고주요든 단대게 나신 버리샤 디네가시에 나라랑 경험시 받는데 김민지 드린데 페이지 군주 코랑기 뿌구니라 다와라 고모 인지 고모 숨주 단거 다 미지기 고모 숨주 단도되니 망보시달리고 와라 아니 콘주 진다 망제 빼 숨쉬 침보르샤 단당 알아 가르세기 두스나 먼저 고문정한테 로망보 고문정한 다와질 고문정한을 단거 말에 야가라 조선대스 파리오 말에 간절히 스케줄 튀긴데 도래 제가 콘도 베마시베 동부주인들이샤
My name is Sonam Tsering Frazi. The reason really why I started the Tibetan Refugee Charitable Trust way back in 1986 was the Tibetan community in Britain had a sponsorship scheme already existing at that time. And because of the background in my education with accounts and trust, and especially in the trust law, I saw the benefit of tax reclamation for the donations that the trust will receive, thereby increasing the amount of donations that each sponsor gives to the child's education scheme. Therefore, we can increase the amount and further increase the reach of the education where children are necessary. The reason why I started, or why I thought of starting the trust, mainly is because we had a sponsorship scheme already. It's a mechanic that will separate the Tibetan community in Britain from the Tibetan Refugee Charitable Trust, which will be a charity wing. Another reason was the Tibetan community in Britain had a role at that point where we had to play political activities, and the trust's main aim is non-political and specifically looking at the education and well-being of Tibetans in India, people who can help our society through small contribution. I think at the moment it costs £180, £15 each month. It is life-changing for somebody, some young child who hasn't got the education opportunity, living in some remote settlements, and this will be a very good benefit for the Tibetan society. B, it is encouraging as well as a self prestige who can help, thinking that they are also a little bit well off than people in India and who needs help, and you are making a small contribution for the society to be better.